So today's is the last class of this course, week 12 class, right? And we would be revising this course. So if you have any question from week 1 to week 11, don't shy and you can ask. Otherwise, obviously that question would be in your final exam. Then it would be quite difficult for you people to answer that question. Okay. So in the first half of the class, we would be revising relational databases, and in the second half of this class we would be practicing SQL again. I hope tutorials like you have attended tutorials, or at least you can see recordings of that tutorials. They are quite good, and if you can solve assignment 2 and if you can practice with SQL, then it wouldn't be difficult for you. But today we will discuss SQL again. It's very easy once you have to identify that, okay, from which table we have to get data. This is very important. And then on the basis of attributes, we have to join 2 or more tables, right? Then it's quite easy to get data. Okay, we will discuss SQL again. So if you have any question, I have uploaded some sort of pattern of the final exam. Final exam would contain around 5 questions. And obviously I'm not speaking in order. I don't remember that order, but there is one question on ERD. Okay, just like the question that was given in assignment 1. So some text would be given, some scenario would be given. You have to identify entities, you have to identify attributes, you have to identify relationships between that entities. Okay. So one question would be definitely on ERD. Then one ERD would be given to you, and then you have to provide its schema or table notation sort of thing. Okay, so you have to convert a given ERD into table schema, or might be some code for create few tables. Okay, so this is very similar to your milestone 2 or milestone 1 sort of thing of your project. So one ERD would be given to you and you have to convert it. So 2 questions. Then obviously SQL is very important part of this final exam. So you would have some schema, and you would have, let's say, 5, 6 or 7 short SQL queries that you have to write it. Okay, so then we have 3 questions. What else? Yeah, then we discuss different things like data security or GDPR sort of thing, or some sort of other things that we discuss in the class, especially week 9, 10, 11 sort of thing. So one question would be from there, and one question could be from normalization or other related database concepts. So exam would be easy. For each marks, time would be given, so that estimated time. So don't spend like 1 hour in making ERD and then you come to know that, okay, ERD was just 25 marks out of 100, and now you have to solve 75% marks in 1 hour, right? So be careful about allocating your time or giving time. So that's why in my exam I usually mention, okay, this question is of 10 marks, and let's say 12 minutes or 15 minutes are more than enough for this question. Okay, even if I am asking something about this thing, then it means that, okay, you don't have to write 10 pages for 10 marks. Okay, so 10 minutes, it means that, okay, if you can write and explain with some example, that's more than enough. Okay, so this is about final exam. So if you have any query about final exam, I think that would be a last chance to ask. Otherwise, you can email me, obviously, but in person, if you have any query, you can ask. So how to prepare? Just revise assignment 1, assignment 2, your milestones. Definitely, if you are comfortable in that assignments and your project milestones, then I would say 80 or 90% of your final exam would be covered very easily. Okay, so it wouldn't be difficult, hopefully, but we have to differentiate between students who are trying hard in this course and who are not trying hard. So exam is the only tool which can do some sort of fair distribution of grades. Otherwise, no problem to giving grades to all, no problem, but we have to be some sort of fair in giving grades, right? And so that students who are doing efforts from week 1 till now, they should have some better grades than the students who are not serious or who are not putting efforts as this course is required. Okay. Any question? In terms of databases, yeah.
So for questions such as like data security and other stuff, like would it be just short answers like 5 something 6 lines or like essay form?
Yeah, it would be very short, hardly maximum 10 marks out of 100. Not a big questions from there. Okay, small questions from there. Okay, so it depends. Yeah. Because we haven't covered so much about data security, we only spent 1 lecture on it, so I think 10 marks would be more than enough for final exam. Okay, but remember, we have covered SQL in at least 4 or 5 lectures. Similarly, we covered ERD and its mapping schema in 3-4 lectures. So it means that higher weightage would be to ERD and its mapping and SQL. So exam would be like 80%, might be around 80% exam would be only from ERD and your SQL, right? So you have to put efforts for your preparations in terms of that sort of thing that is proportional to the course weeks that we cover. So then it would be easy for you. Okay. So this is a very basic introduction course of database. It's not ending. Okay, and definitely in the next year you would be learning another course, advanced databases sort of thing, and all of you at least agree that without databases we cannot build big applications or even small applications, right? Like Twitter, Facebook, what else? Even Google search engine has backend. At the backend they are storing search results and ranking results, right? So they are indexing all the text, they are crawling from different websites in a databases. Okay, they are creating in indexes or some sort of thing, but databases is a basic requirement of everything, WhatsApp or something, right? So in the next course, definitely you would be learning some advanced topics of databases. And in today's, in this course, we only talked about relational databases, right? So can anyone tell what is a relational database? Relational databases. So in relational databases, we are storing data in the form of rows and columns, right? So, or we can say that we have entities, right? One entity, and definitely this entity would have some attributes. Remember, we started from database course from the definition of database that it's a mini world of related entities, right? It's a mini world. So for example, we have different entities, they are related with each other, so that's why they are making one database. And every entity has some attributes. And definitely in real life, every entity would have thousands of attributes. But who will determine, or how we can determine which attributes are important to us? Can anyone tell? Like as a human, we have thousands of characteristics. But do you think NUIG database would be storing all of these 1000 characteristics? Or same characteristics that would be storing by AIB or some other banking application? Or it would be different? Can anyone tell? If AIB is taking your personal data to store in a database, and similarly NUIG is taking your personal data to store, would it be same or it could be different? Anyone?
Just pick relevant data,
Sorry?
just what's relevant, and you might be like,
Okay. So technically, business rules are defining which attributes are important to that business, right? Like if you are purchasing something, do you think they will ask you what was your grade in the database course? If you are buying some shoe, instead of asking your shoe size number, they would ask, okay, what was your grade in database technologies course? No. But at NUIG might be you are applying for some scholarship, they would ask you your GPA. They wouldn't ask you your shoe size, right? It means that attributes could be different. Of same entity, it could be different, right? And we discussed so many examples. For example, if I am going to get some parking permit at NUIG, they would hardly say, okay, what is the registration number of your car? Hardly they would say, okay, what is the model of the car and color of the car. They wouldn't ask, okay, how many seats are there? What is the capacity of engine? What is this, right? They will not ask. But if you are going to some government office to register your car or tax, paying some sort of tax, NCT or some sort of road tax, then definitely they would ask this sort of information. Okay, how many seats are there, or what is the capacity of your engine, right? So see, same entity, when this entity, for example, E1 is in this database, they have different attributes. Same E1 entity in some other mini world, they have some different attributes. Might be they have some overlapping attributes, that's fine. For example, your PPS number might be, NUIG is also taking your PPS number, and NCT people or road tax people are also taking your, or banking application could also storing your PPS number, that's fine. Overlapping is possible, right? But these attributes would be from your business logic, business rules, why you are storing data, okay? So that's why we are calling this sort of database as a mini world of related entities, right? In which we have entities, their attributes, and then these entities would have relationships with each other. Relationship, the word relational database and relationship has same root, right? So, for example, E1 is related to, so I can represent, so this E1 and E3 are related with each other. Similarly, E2 is related with E3. So it is possible that, okay, we have entities. So in relational databases, we have three important things. First of all, entity or entities, right? Attributes of each entity and their relationships. So this is a relational database, okay? And then we discussed this sort of thing that in relational database, this entity would become a table when we would be converting this thing, right? And obviously, in each table we have different instances. So student is one entity, but obviously NUIG would have 30,000 students. So for example, Martin is one student. Martin is an instance of this student entity, right? Same is the case, for example, if we have university. University is an entity, and obviously instance would be NUIG or UCD, right? Or some other universities, MIT, Stanford, right? So this is relational database. And when we talk about instances, we also discuss about primary key. Instance should be uniquely identified by something with some key, and that key in relational database is known as a primary key. Okay, so primary key is just a key that can uniquely identify you. For example, if you are a student, then obviously your registration number, registration ID or registration number is a primary key of that student table. Okay, PPS number could be a primary key. What else? Some sort of passport number, right? So it depends. We can define primary key. So we discussed this thing in this course that we have to arrange or we have to store our data. And very good thing about DBMS, DBMS is just a tool which would manage our data. A lot of things, like a lot of functionalities or requirements of databases will be fulfilled by that DBMS. Okay, and obviously DBMS would be responsible that our data is persistent, right? We don't want to because we are storing data. Okay, so data should be persistent. It could be updatable, right? We can update it. So these are the properties that data should be persistent, it should be updatable, and it should be consistent. Okay, consistent in the term that we also discussed in terms of concurrency, ACID properties, right, sort of thing. So they are very important ACID properties, that data should be consistent. If someone is doing some sort of transaction, then obviously these transaction should be executing successfully. And transaction is just a combination of different SQL queries, 2-3 SQL queries. It should be all or it should be none. Okay, we can revoke if there is some problem after executing 2 SQL queries. So this is about databases, and important thing is that, like, from some scenario, from business requirements, we should be able to identify important entities. This is the important thing. Okay, so for example, if I can, okay, so for example, there is one scenario given to you, then you have to identify what are the important entities. Okay, we can take some example. For example, if I am going to make some web application for some sort of for some university, for example, okay, for NUIG. So what are the important entities that university want to store information about them? What could be in a university scenario? Can anyone tell? Sorry? Address? Address of a university? Entity. Address is a attribute, no? For example, we want to store some sort of student management information system. We want to make student management information system, MIS. Okay. Then obviously important entities would be students, right? Student would be important entity. Then in staff, they could be academic and non-academic, right? So let's suppose academic staff and non-academic staff. Courses, just like this database technology course or some other courses, right? Rooms or auditoriums or buildings, right? In which, just like this one. Okay. So, for example, we have these 4 entities. After identifying important entities, we have to identify important attributes of these entities. And in that business scenario or in business requirements, these attributes would be given to you. In real life, it would be some sort of requirement document in which they would have definitely clearly mentioned that, okay, we want to store this information of students, this sort of information about staff, this information about courses and rooms. Okay. So, but obviously we cannot expect that client document would be 100% accurate. So might be 80-90% information is there, but then 5 to 10% information we have to re-interview the client, or we have to use some sort of universal thing that, okay, these attributes are important for our system. Okay. So if, for example, if I say you have to make ERD of this business scenario, 5-10 lines would be given to you. The important and the first task would be for you to identify these entities. What are the important entities? You can just simply write it. You can use your rough pages in your exam or somewhere to just write by this way. Okay. And then meanwhile you can see, okay, there would be explicitly saying that student must have some name, some registration number, postal address or simply address. So these are the different attributes that they want to store. Phone number. Similarly for staff, almost same information like name, employee ID, right, and phone number, designation. For courses, it could be course number like MS 218 or course code, course title, right, or credit hours of this course, let's say 5, 4, it depends.
So, for example, if on exam to make ERD questions, should we write this first or the box thing?
This is not required, but might be you can quickly do some sort of rough work or sort of thing, and then you can make that ERD. But if you can directly make that is required. Okay. But I'm just saying that it would take 2-3 minutes, but you can quickly get all the information. So it's totally up to you. The only requirement is ERD, okay, not this sort of thing. Okay. So other than exam, obviously you would require some sort of an rough work to do sort of thing, so that there is nothing important information is missed, right? So staff course, similarly for rooms, you can say that its exact location, and obviously I'm not going in more detail. Room would be part of some building, and obviously this sort of thing, same is the case with staff or something, but that's fine. So location, capacity is very important, especially for nowadays. You know that 80% of room can be filled or something. So if one class has size of 120, then obviously they would require a room of 150 or 160 capacity. Okay, so by this way you can write down different things. But if you want to quickly, if you have identify quickly entities, then obviously don't waste your time. Just write down your, for example, staff, right? And just writing starting attributes here. So it's totally up to you. Okay. And in terms of attributes, remember we have to identify one attribute as a unique identifier or primary key. That is very important. So if it's not given in your business scenario, then you can simply create artificial UID. We discussed this thing in the class, that registration ID or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just ID attribute as a UID of this attribute. So you would say staff, let's say ID. Okay. Other than UIDs, you have mandatory attributes and you have optional attributes. For example, name of that particular staff is obviously mandatory. You cannot expect that you are hiring some employee and you don't know what is his or her name, right? So similarly, in banking application, you cannot open a bank account without title or name of the customer, right? So it means that this is mandatory. Optional could be, for example, home phone number is optional, home phone. And there is another attribute, cell number or mobile phone number, right? Then obviously you cannot enforce all your customers or all your students they must have some home number, right? It's fine if they don't have, optional. So what does it mean that optional means? The value can be null, okay, empty, okay. But this mandatory and your unique identifier can never be null at any stage, okay. So this is very important, especially your UID cannot be null. And can anyone tell what are the other requirements of UIDs? And we also discussed this thing that UID could be one or more, right? It's a combination of, it could be a combination of two things, two attributes, right? So important thing about UID is that it must be unique. Is it possible that two students would have same registration number at NUIG? No, it is not possible. If they have, it means that there is some problem in the database. But obviously it is not possible. Okay, so it means that your UID must be unique. Okay, so it must be unique. It cannot be null. Cannot be null. Okay, so these are the properties of UIDs, unique identifiers. So by this way we can draw entities, different entities, staff, course, student, rooms, right? Third important thing about entities or relational database is their relationships with each other. Okay, relationships. Okay, so in relationships we have two things: optionality and cardinality. So optionality is that there may be a relation between this entity and this entity, or there must be a relationship. So in optionality we have two options, maybe and must be. In ERD notations we represent maybe with this sort of dotted line, right, or dashed, right, and this solid straight line represent relationship as a must. Okay, so cardinality is that how many instances can or may have relationship with other instances of other entity. Okay, it could be one or it could be many. Okay, so one or many. Many means 1, 2, 3, 4 up to infinity. Okay, but one means only one. So for relationships these two things are important, and the last thing that we also discuss about thing that we do have some name of that relationship. For example, each employee may works in some department. So relationship between employee entity and department entity would be named as works in, right? And these relationships are bidirectional. Okay, so for example I have one entity, let me go back to green. So for example staff, one entity, and obviously this staff would belong to some department. So we have two entities, staff and department. In the previous section we have defined entities, we have defined UID, for example ID, here we have ID, that's fine. Attribute names can be same between two entities, that's fine, no problem. Okay, so then we have one mandatory attribute staff name, mandatory attribute PPS number, for example, optional attribute phone number. For department ID, for example, obviously mandatory attribute its department name. Okay, optional could be, for example, address, for example. Okay, so this optionality and mandatory sort of thing, this would also be coming from the business logic. Okay, so I cannot say that address would always be mandatory in each entity, no. In some entities it could be optional. So if it's written very clearly that this attribute is mandatory sort of thing, then that's fine. Otherwise in exam or something you can take some assumption, but you have to clearly write down that assumption that as this thing is not mentioned, so I am taking address as an optional attribute of this entity. That's totally fine. Okay, so we have two entities. Now the second thing is that attributes, we have defined attributes, we may have some more attributes, but for the time being that's fine. Now we have to define relationship between staff and department. Okay, and for relationships we have to define 6 things, because relationships are bidirectional. So from left to right you need 3 things, from right to left you also need 3 things. Okay, This is optionality, cardinality, and name of that relationship. So, for example, there is a policy that each staff must works in one and only one department. Okay? Obviously, if I am part of BIS, it's very hard that I could be part of some other department as well. Until and unless I am on some split program or some sort of thing, that's fine. But for this logic, we are saying that each employee or each staff must be a member of or works in one and only one department. Okay? So for must, it means that I have to put this solid straight line for must relationship, right? And I can write its name as works in. So now I can, each staff must works in one and only one department. For one, if there is nothing in the relationship in this side, then it means that the cardinality is one and only one. But if there is a crowfoot just like this, then this is for many thing, right? So this is for this many, but for one, that's fine, nothing, no symbol as such. So we will come here. So policy is that each department may have one or many employees, may have. There is a chance that university has just around one department and there is no as such hiring. So department is still there, but there is no employee in that department. Okay. So each department may have, so for may, we have to do this thing. Okay. Each department may contains or comprised of one or many employees. For many, one or many employees, it means that I have to place this crowfoot here. Okay. So now this ERD in terms of staff and department is complete. We have defined two entities. We have defined their attributes with their optionality, with their UIDs, and then for relationships we have defined 6 things. 3 from this side for this entity, for staff, 3 for departments. Okay, so if you can speak a straight sentence for this relationship, it means that you have successfully completed, like each staff must works in one and only one department. So this sentence is complete. So each department may be comprised of or contains one or many staff members. That's it. So now we can define some other entities similarly, and obviously there is no need that I would say each entity would have relationship with all entities in the database. No. Okay. For example, in terms of NUIG database, might be there are some entities which are related to staff, but they are not related to, for example, students. For example, they are storing name of children or dependents of the staff so that they give some incentive, some sort of thing. But obviously dependents table or a dependents entity would have no relationship with students entity. Okay. So by this way we can simply create an ERD. So basic tip is that you should be clear that okay, how we can create an ERD. Start from simple entities and their simple relationships, then try to add more complex relationships or more complex entities. If you would be stuck in complex thing, believe me, it would be hardly 2 or 3 marks out of 10, for example. But easiest part would contain 7 or 8 marks. So start from the easiest part, so that at least you can get 7-8 marks out of 10 from that question. Otherwise, if you would be stuck in 2-3 marks of complex things, you wouldn't have time. Okay, so I am emphasizing this sort of thing of time, because I know that in database exam you have to take care of your time, because making these sort of things, writing 10-20 attributes again and again, or making SQL queries, it will consume your time. Okay, so always, even this formula could be applied from exam point of view as well. Whenever you get an exam, start from a easy question. Okay, don't leave it for the later part of your exam, because there would be pressure build up, because you wouldn't be able to solving difficult questions, and at the end you wouldn't have enough time to solve easy questions as well. So always start from a easy question, solve it, and just try to spare some time from easy questions as well, so that you can put time or your efforts in difficult questions as well. Okay, usually 50-60% of the exam is easy, very easy, but we only stuck in 40% of difficult exam, and because of that 40% we cannot solve correctly that easy exam. So always start with the simple questions, easy questions, and then go to the some difficult part. Okay, so any question? Like in ERD, if you can correctly identify entities, if you can correctly identify attributes, if you can correctly mention easy relationships with their optionality and cardinality sort of thing, believe me, you can get 70 or 80% marks in that ERD. But if you are leaving final exam paper empty, then I cannot give you 70 or 80% marks. You should put some things, right? Some basic things should be there. And if you are putting some basic things, then 50-60 marks is very easy to get, and then there would be some medium sort of difficult things, then quite difficult things. So even if you can attempt till medium, you can get 60-70 marks very easily in any exam, I think. So we can take a break. Okay, then we will discuss few advanced topics of databases in 5-10 minutes, and then we would have time for SQL revision. Okay, so 15-minute break. So between two entities we have different options of relationship. It could be one-to-one, right? It could be one-to-many, and it could be many-to-many. So one-to-one example could be, for example, we have one entity country and another entity capital, right? Or other example could be, for example, student entity or staff entity and parking permit. So for example, only one permit can be issued to one staff member. Okay, so there are so many examples, but usually in most of the cases in databases we have one-to-many relationships, and you have seen in different examples in your projects, or usually we have one-to-many sort of thing. Even if we have many-to-many relationships, we have to resolve many-to-many relationships into one-to-many relationships, and we will see today. We will revise this thing. So in terms of one-to-many, we just saw one example, staff entity and department entity has one-to-many relationship. Same is the case with country and city, because one country may have one or many cities, right? So this is one to many. It could be something others, right? But there are some cases of many to many. For example, student and course, right? Student and course. So what else? Because each student, right, may enroll one or many courses. Similarly, each course may have one or many students. So relationship is many to many, right? So whenever we have relationships many to many, it means that there are some attributes which are hiding in between these relationships. So we have to resolve this entity, we have to resolve this relationship of student and courses, and the easiest way is, if this is student entity, for example this is course entity, right? So each student may have one or many courses. Each course, for example, may have one or many students. So this sort of relationship is many to many. We have to resolve this thing, okay? So just remember that in your final exam, if you are making some relationship as many to many, you have to resolve it, okay? And for resolve it, it's very easy. So this is student, course. We have to introduce third entity named as, for example, enrollment. Okay. So it would always be one to many, and this would be a barred thing. And for the third entity, relationship would always be must for enrollment side, but this side would be same as this side. If this is optional, this would be optional. If this is mandatory, must, this would be must, okay? Otherwise same. And this barred, can anyone tell what does it mean, that barred from this side? Can anyone tell? Yeah.
One entity's primary key is the other one's primary key is attribute.
So basically this bar means UID of this entity would be you can say attribute of this entity as well, okay? Similarly, because this entity also has a barred relationship with course, so UID of this entity would be a part as an attribute of this entity as well. So this bar means primary keys are coming from here and becoming part of attributes of there, okay? So you can see in enrollment entity we can write one attribute, grade. For example, this is optional. So remember, so now for each student, if he or she is enrolling some course, enrollment grade is present, would be there. And obviously other attribute could be semester, in which semester he or she was taking that course, right? Or some other related information about this particular offering of this course, okay? So by this way we can resolve many to many relationships into one to many, but we have to create another third entity, okay? So by this way we can solve it. Is it clear? Barred entities, okay? So barred entities mean when we would be converting this mapping sort of thing, student ID would become an attribute of this entity as well, okay? So all UIDs would be attributes of this thing, and for this same bar, all UIDs of this course would be part of this sort of thing. Then in an assignment, we have discussed functional dependencies. So remember, we started normalization process with one need, that the main objective of normalization process is to remove redundancy, because if we have redundant data, then we have to update this data so many times, multiple copies, if we are storing that sort of thing, and it would be difficult, okay? So for example, if I have one relationship, for example, I have one attribute, two attributes, three attributes. So for this relation, first question is asking about keys, UIDs in other words, okay? So you just have to tell, if I take A1 and A2, it could be a UID, one option. If I can combine A1 and A3 and A4, it could be another option for key. Remember, we have one term known as candidate keys. You know the meaning of this candidate in elections? Do you know? For any constituencies, we have few candidates from different political parties. They could become MD, or they could become senator, or they could become parliamentarian, right? So just same thing. In one relation, we have multiple candidates. We may have multiple candidates, but from that candidates, we have to select one pair as a UID of that relationship, okay? So this is a candidate 1, this is a candidate 2. So you have to identify all possible candidates from that relationships, okay? So that can become primary key of that relation. It's very easy. Names are given, so you only have to check, okay, this combination would be unique identifier for the complete relation. It's very easy, right? Then the second thing is functional dependencies, and we discussed this thing in our lecture, that if I say by this way, it means that B is functional dependent on A, okay? For example, PPS number, so this name, if I have some name in some database, then obviously it would be here because of this PPS number, right? Because this PPS number is unique, okay? So it means that this name is functional dependent on PPS number, right? For example, student ID defines student name. Student name is functional dependent on student ID. For example, if someone says Martin. Can I identify Martin in the in all university students? Who is Martin? One Martin? No. Right? But this Martin is attached. If that Martin is attached with one student ID, then it means I can easily identify that Martin. Right? So it means that student name is functionally dependent on student ID. And then we discussed this thing that this functional dependency could be partial, right? Or fully dependent. So for example, it is possible that attribute 1, attribute 2 is a UID, and it is defining another attribute, let's say A3. So I will say A3 is functional dependent on A1 and A2. Now it is possible that in actual A3 is only dependent on A2, not on A1. So it means that A3 is partially functional dependent on this key. So this is a key A1, A2. Okay, and we in the exam or even in in lecture slides you can see different examples. We discuss this thing, partial functional dependencies and transitive functional dependencies. So it is possible. So we have different examples. For example, I have product, for example ID, and supplier ID, right? For example, this is a key and there is one attribute name as supplier name. Obviously this supplier name cannot be identified without this key, but you can see this supplier name is technically only dependent on supplier ID. There is no link with product ID and supplier name, right? So this is partial dependency. So this is partial dependency. Okay, so this is partial dependency. Second normal form says this is not allowed, no partial dependency. Third normal form says no transitive dependency allowed. What is transitivity? B is dependent on A, C is dependent on B. Indirectly, C is also dependent on A, right? This is a transitive property, very basic maths property. So this sort of thing is not allowed in 3NF. Okay, so so just go through normalization slides again. I do remember that we have spent very like almost 2 weeks. We discussed first normalization form in one lecture, and then in the next week we discuss second and third normal form. So just remember that what is the criteria for functional dependencies, what does it mean that partial dependency and transitive dependency. Okay, then you can easily solve this sort of thing. Okay, so this is relational database. And other than relational databases, we have very NoSQL databases. NoSQL databases. Okay. In the next course, most probably in your semester 5, you would be getting this course, advanced databases, named as advanced databases, in which you would be learning NoSQL databases. Nowadays, there are so many famous databases. MongoDB is there, right? And Neo4j is there, Cassandra is there, Apache Ignite is there. Okay, so there are so many databases people are using which are not relational databases. But obviously in this course we are not discussing NoSQL databases, but they are getting famous. Most of the databases nowadays, these NoSQL databases are open source softwares. They are free to use. Okay, and but you know that Oracle or Microsoft SQL Server, they are quite expensive solutions. Okay, so other than that, NoSQL databases, right now people are using distributed databases. Okay, so this is again advanced topic, distributed databases. In MS courses I do teach distributed databases, and they are quite famous because of distributed applications. In terms of distributed, in short, you can simply understand this sort of thing, that for example, it could be row wise or it could be table wise distributed. But for example, in US, 2-3 tables of your database are residing in US, and in EU or in Ireland, 2-3 tables of your database are here. Okay, so it means that over the internet they are connected with each other. Internet. Okay, so if user is querying something, then obviously distributed DBMS would get data from here, join, combine, and then it will provide results back to the user. Okay, so it depends how you will partition your database, but the main idea of distributed databases is that your data is distributed over different geographical locations. It could be part of one network, it could be part of multiple different networks, right? And for example, Facebook data, obviously they cannot store all Facebook data in one location. They must have some data centers, different multiple data centers in different locations. Do you know how many data centers are working in Ireland only? Any rough idea? Quite famous data center we have in this country is Amazon. Okay, although they are not delivering direct to Ireland, but, and do you know by 2030 the electricity consumption of Ireland would be 70% by only that data centers. 70% of Irish electricity would be consumed by data centers only. Rest of Ireland, all population, all people, industries would be consuming 30% of your electricity, and 70%, it's an estimate, by 2030. But there are more than 50 data centers currently they are working, and 26 data centers would be functional in 2-3 years, and by 2025 or something, or by 30, it would be more than 100 data centers in Ireland. Okay, so and obviously these data centers have different opportunities for people who are living here or who want to work with them. So yeah, so any question? So this is very I think you are, because you are, most of you are from BIS background, and there are students from Bachelor of Commerce, right? As well, and hotel management as well. So database itself is a very promising field as a career. You can pursue whatever degree you are getting, no problem. So this is just a starting point. You know that in 12 weeks I cannot make you an expert of database. You can understand that. One course and your 4 years degree cannot be equal, right? So definitely you have to learn other skills as well, and your BIS skills. Definitely you require that, but this the good thing is that Apex account that we are using, that would be valid for 1 year. So even after that course you can keep use of that Apex account, and even after 1 year if you require it, you can email me. I will create a new Apex account for you people if you want, right? And it's very good that you can, instead of installing Oracle or sub DBMS in your machines, you only require one browser and internet connection. Okay, so then we can discuss the final thing of this course. Okay, SQL. So if in a relational database, if we have tables, for example, employees, departments, projects, department locations, right? We have different tables. So through SQL, what we can do, we can create these tables, we can insert new record, we can update, we can delete, and we can extract information. Okay, the very famous select statement. In your report writing, in your reports, whenever you are creating some system, your 90% queries would be comprised of your select queries. Okay, even if you are using your Facebook, you know how many posts you would be uploading daily? 1 maximum, 2, 3, right? Or might be 1 to 3 in a month. Same is the case with uploading some pictures. Might be once in a month or once in a week, or might be daily, but obviously you would be getting more information from other users that is already uploaded, right? So this select statement is very important. And in assignment 2 we are trying to get some select statements. So what is a trick, simple trick for SQL? For any particular SQL statement, you have to identify tables. Okay, this SQL query Q1 is asking about this table and this table, right? This is the first step. After reading question of SQL, you have to identify, you should be able to identify names of the tables or tables. Okay, if you can do this thing very easily, believe me, 70% of the problem is solved. You know that, okay, from these two tables, now this query is asking about attribute 1, attribute 2 and attribute 3. Okay, this attribute 1 is from employees table, E.E1, E.A2. This attribute is from departments table. It means that whenever we have 2 or more tables, we have to join it. For joining, we must require some criteria, condition. Okay, condition of attributes. Obviously, you cannot join students data of GMIT and NUIG. Can you join? Because you require some common information. Okay? Even you can write a query for 2 tables, but results would be 0 because there is no common criteria between 2 tables. And common criteria means common attribute. When I am saying common attribute, it doesn't mean the name of the attribute should be same. It could be different. For example, some students are taking some online courses in UCD, and they have some and NUIG just want to check, okay, how many students were enrolled in that courses, and there they were using same NUIG registration number, for example. Then they can match very easily, okay, these are the students from UCD databases, student registration matching with student registration who are part of NUIG. They can see, okay, these are the 20 or 30 students who were taking this short online courses, for example. Okay, so step 1, identify tables. If more than 2 tables, 2 or more tables. Second step, you have to identify join condition, join attribute. Third step, you have to check, is it talking about group, some group, or some sort of individual? If the query is saying how many employees are working in marketing department, it's aggregation, right? Summarization of something. Whenever query is asking about aggregation, summary, then it means that I do require group by statement. Okay, so this is the third criteria to check. Do we require some sort of group or not? Then obviously, if there is some overall condition, that overall condition can be handled by a where clause, where salary is greater than 8,000 euro, for example. If there is some criteria on summarization, I need employees of each department, but that department must have at least 20 employees. Okay, so it means that now I need summary, but there is another criteria or condition on that summary. I don't want all departments with their total number of employees. I only require employees or departments having 20 or more employees. It means that I need having clause. Having clause is quite similar to the where clause, but this having clause would be applied on a group. Okay, so I can now write a summary query, SQL query. So select, I will write down required attributes later on, no problem. I have to tell step 1, I come to know that I need 2 tables, employees and departments. So from employees, 2 tables, join is required. Join departments, so if join is there, I have to mention joining condition on. So this is, for example, employees dot depth number should be equals to departments dot depth number. Okay, if I am working in BIS department, in my table, there would be one attribute as department number, let's say 23 would be added. And in departments table, there would be one row with department ID 23 having other details as well. Complete name of the department or who is HOD of that department, right? So on, but I need summary, count. So I would say group by, okay. So now I am grouping, for example, employees dot department number, okay, group by employees dot department number. Here I can print count static. Count static will return total number of rows for each record, and employees department number. So by this way you can easily write an SQL query. Just remember that if that query is quite complex, don't leave it blank, okay, because I would check by this way. Okay, they have correctly identified tables, they have correctly identified joining criteria. Yes, they know that okay, we need group by statement. So might be you were confused something here or something down. So might be you can get still 70 or 80% credit of this question. Okay. So you should identify table names. You should identify that we need join or not. We do require group by statement or not. And if there is some criteria, so you can say that having count static is greater than 20. Now tables result will come back with all the departments which have like more than 20 employees in it. Okay, so this is SQL, and obviously you have to practice it, and there are very good tutorials available. Recording of these tutorials are available, and even you can go through my lectures again as well. So only practice here, right, is required. Any questions?
Will we be asked to insert, update, and delete and select in the exam? Will we be asked all four?
In exam, I can't recall, but definitely some create statements would be there when you would be mapping ERD into a schema. Then definitely there would be one question that would be asking you to provide SQL statement of SQL create statement for that particular table, 2-3 tables. Okay, so create statement definitely would be there. And in terms of update, insert, I'm not sure, but I don't think so they would be there. Okay, so 95% SQL would be based on select clause. Okay.